収束発散
There's an idea out there that Kaido puts out about Haki when he fights against Luffy, where he states that Haki can transcend all things. And that is part of the reason why someone like Gold D. Roger was able to conquer the world, in his opinion, where his Haki was so tremendous, he didn't require abilities because his Haki alone was enough. And it is stated that when Gold D. Roger is enraged, he would be as ferocious as a demon, and it could even destroy entire nations' armies when they just talk smack about his friends. And Roger did perform pretty well against Whitebeard when we see them fight in the Oden flashback, but keep in mind that he's not enraged, one, and two, he has a year left to live. But now we're seeing people that are of high status in the world One Piece, like the Elders, also use Haki, and the Haki that they have might be of an ominous sort of nature here. We're on two fronts. Number one, with the introduction of Jay Garcia Saturn on the island, several of the characters note how they feel a very ominous, a very odd presence. And then recently in chapter 1111, Jinbei, he sees Marcus Mars plowing through the Labostratum barrier, and he mentions how tremendous his Haki is. Furthermore, we have a technique used by Tamen Warkuri mimicking Big Mom on Whole Cake Island, where in this giant boar form, he does a screaming AoE conquerors Haki move, and people that are on the marine ships are also getting knocked out as a result of that AoE screaming technique. So the Elders do have some Haki, allegedly some pretty powerful Haki, and potentially the Haki is the reason why folks like Luffy and Lucci and Jinbei and Zoro, why they feel this sort of weird, ominous presence. So Haki, I would say, is very ambiguous. There are things about Haki that to this day aren't really clear. And it gets really confusing if you use the anime as your baseline, because the anime is all over the place. When it comes to the colors, how the abilities are applied, at times it's really hard to gauge. Even though we saw Blackbeard fight against Law and it's phenomenal, and we see these gigantic red bolts of lightning similar to Rayleigh and similar to Shanks, at this point in time it's still unclear if that was Conqueror's Haki being used by Blackbeard in that scene. Haki, yes, but was he infusing his quakes with Conqueror's Haki? We still don't know. There are also odd things that are potentially canon or not mentioned by Ichiro Oda when it comes to Haki and its application. Like, for example, in Volume 4 Billion, that ties to Film Red, Oda reveals an ability of Shanks's where Shanks has the ability of observation killing. It's an advanced application of Conqueror's Haki that allows Shanks to control, snuff out his own presence in some way, and it prevents other people from viewing his future. So future sight abilities do not work on Shanks on paper if that genuinely is canon, which I think it is canon. So the idea that was brought out to me 2 months ago by Beat Gamer 99, reverse Haki technique,
術式反転赤
though it is funny, there could be cases here where Haki could do some insane, zany, wonky things. And one of those things could be the source of the Elders' regeneration. Now, it's not to say that Luffy has weak Haki, not by any stretch of the imagination. No, absolutely not. In fact, latest chapter again, 1111, people surmise that the black paint, when he just manifests the bucket of paint and the paintbrush and he just slaps it on the tree to make the bat, that could be Haki paint. And that is a wonky, zany way of Haki transcending all things for damn sure. But that's Haki potentially in combination with his Gear 5 shenanigans. And Luffy, he's a tuner. Those sort of dudes, you can't really gauge properly. They just do whatever they want to do. Luffy, at times, unironically, is at the precipice of reality warping. So let him cook. But in a general sense, just how you have the unique technique of observation killing, stated in Volume 4 Billion about Shanks, could you apply Haki in a way that can recover your own body? And this is where the Gorosei would come in. Where the Gorosei, let's just say they don't have the Haki level equal to Luffy. Let's just put it out there, okay? Even still, they have an understanding of Haki greater than Luffy, so they can apply it in a way to actually heal, restore their body. In theory, it could be something they figured out after centuries of being alive. When Marcus Mars dives into the Labostratum barrier, and then there's that big explosion, in the latest chapter, we do see black sparks that are around Marcus Mars. And then we see him come out of that smoke, he's relatively fine. So you could assume, okay, he just regen. But a lot of times you get to see that process. But because there's smoke there, we don't get to see that process of regeneration. During my reaction stream, some folks did speculate that he was using Conqueror's Haki all over his body, like infusion for his whole body, which allowed him to plow through that barrier relatively fine. But keep in mind that Luffy, when he fought against Kizaru the first time round, when he was pumped into the Labostratum barrier, he ran back through that same barrier in Gear 5 and he took damage. And Luffy, we know, maybe he didn't do it at that point in time, but we know that he can coat his body in Armor and Conqueror's Haki. Kaido mentions that in chapter 1045. So if we assume that Luffy did that to get back into the Labo phase area, but he took damage, then there's safe bet again that Marcus Mars took damage, but he regened. Maybe the Haki utilized at that point in time was to amplify that regeneration factor that the Gorosei, the elders, have. So Haki, if it transcends all things, Haki could be used to restore one's physical body. Now, is it likely? I would say very unlikely, because to me, the theme, the plot point that was mentioned way back when in Dressrosa, the immortality surgery, I feel like that's more likely the case here when it comes to the Gorosei's immortality factor. Worm Jupiter, the sandworm, in 1110 got his head cut off. He got decapitated, but we see next chapter, he's still coming back. I have my doubts that Haki could transcend all things to the point where someone could, let's say, get decapitated and then come back. That's pretty insane. But if that was the case, then how come someone, let's say like Shanks, can't regen his arm? Or let's say someone like Roger fight off a terminal disease because their Haki levels would be so tremendous. Goldie Roger recently, in terms of the stats, he's the strongest character in Pirate Warriors 4. Does that necessarily matter? No, but again, it piggybacks off of Kaido's idea of Roger had Haki that was just so out of this world that he could conquer this crazy, insane ocean. But someone like that couldn't use his Haki to thwart off a terminal disease? What? In the same way that Law could fight off the ability-oriented disease that turned into a girl by Doc Q, why couldn't Roger fight off a naturally created terminal disease? Cancer, HIV, Ebola, COVID, they should all be washed away in Haki pulse in your body. Purify yourself like a Chinese manhwa cultivator. Easy. But no. That did not happen. So maybe the reverse Haki technique is not something that you, let's say, do to restore your physical body. Probably. Though, there are some questions about the gigantic, colossal teleportation black bolts of lightning. The ones the elders use to teleport themselves from the Holy Land to Egghead. Is it possible that you can use Haki to transport yourself from one location to another location just like that? Like, unironically, a instant transmission via Haki. There have been a lot of comments as to how someone like Shanks could enter the Holy Land and talk to the elders. How did Shanks bypass all of the security systems and enter the Holy Land? And when we see Shanks attack Kid, one thing that is neglected by many readers is the fact that Shanks was on the Red 4 ship, and the Red 4 ship was docked at shore. And somehow, Shanks was able to go from the Red 4 ship all the way to Kid's ship in the blink of an eye before devastating him with a divine departure. How did he move that great distance, just like that, in the blink of an eye, to devastate Kid? Is it pure speed? Is it Haki plus speed? Or is it a unique Haki technique that allowed Shanks to get from point A to point B? The same thing he used to enter the Holy Land and somehow no one knew but the elders. Makes you wonder. It absolutely does. So to be quite frank, if Shanks can use Conqueror's Haki to erase his own presence completely, then I would say that the Holy Land would be enough. For the Elders and their gigantic pillars of lightning, teleportation via Haki, it's not completely out of the window, I would say. Unlikely, yeah, because I'll lean towards, let's say, abilities that either are Saturn-oriented only, potentially all of them could do this. So let's say, for example, if Ethan was in Kamabaka trying to take out Dragon and company, she could summon the other Goro State to his location. That, of course, is my assumption, my theory. And another theory would be it's all Emu-oriented, where Emu is the reason why they can teleport themselves from one location to another location. Because I can't forget the idea that when Saturn touched down on the island, he said, it's been a long time since I came to the surface world. So it feels like there's definitely a lot of shadowy things going on here outside of the possibility of Haki usage. And keep in mind that in the latest chapter, again, 1111, when we see Marcus Mars do that war cry, Skyrim shout across the entire island, no one mentions the black sparks of Haki like above them. None of the fodder do, but everyone sees those gigantic black bolts when they teleport in. And remember, Haki on paper is supposed to be invisible to the naked eye by folks that have no real sense of it, aka the fodder guys, the fodder marines, and so on and so forth. Ultimately speaking, the idea of Haki having more abilities, techniques we have yet to see so far in the story that we're seeing, let's say now, whether let's say not being revealed to be Haki just yet, I think is very, very possible. Would I go as far as to say, like, actual reverse Haki technique, I can heal my wounds? Again, likely not. Likely not. But if Haki can transcend all things, then potentially transcending immortality could be an option. To where, let's say, if your Haki level gets to a certain point, you can even do damage, genuine damage, to immortals like the Five Elders. Crazy, but again, all things is Kaido's claims. Then we're gonna see soon enough in this final saga what that earnest means. If not already, potentially, already seeing that play out. Because things like the winds of the Netherworld, or let's say even Zoro's embers on his swords, they could also be Haki related in some unique way. But again, only time can tell. Hopefully Oda will let us know more details about that in the near future. So let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you guys on the flip side.
See you. Bye bye.